How's it going, everybody? One of the common questions that I get from people either through my channel or through email or through, whatever means that you want to communicate to me through, I do respond to whatever people respond to me with. One of the common ones is, what do you do after you earn your certification? And I'm actually taking a break between recording BGP videos and deep diving BGP, and I felt like it was a good time to respond to that, because it's one of those things where if you don't know what you want to do after you earn your cert, or maybe it's not a case of what do you want to do after you pass. Maybe it's a case of, you have your you have your job, you're not sure where to go with your job, or whatever the case might be. Depending on how you want to go forward will determine what you should do. Now, what do you do after you earn your cert is a very loaded question. From the person that just earned their CCNA. Now, I've had a CCNA now for about a year and a half. I've also got my CCNP. I passed CCNA security about a week after I passed my CCNP. I just recently passed the CCIE written exam, and I'm actively studying for my CCIE. So what does that mean? I mean, is that good that I went ahead? Is it good that I'm aggressive and I wanted to go after these higher level certifications? Again, it depends. I've had some employers say that I'm way overqualified for anything that they're going to need. I've had other employers or other interviews where they tell me, well, you did really good. However, the problem is you may or may not be the right fit because you are going so aggressive. So what do you do? I mean, do you go wider? So do you go, let's say I'm a route switch guy, so I'm really good in the route switch arena. I'm pretty good with the security side, so I'm good with doing what they call secure device connectivity. So I can secure a device with Radius or TACACS. I can also do secure connectivity between sites, whether it's site-to-site VPNs, remote access VPNs, SSL VPNs, that type of stuff. I'm good with those. DMVPN, all that good stuff that goes along with security. But that's only a small portion of security. I'm also okay with voice. I don't throw me a call manager, because I would sink before I'd float. But the key thing with voice is understanding the technology of voice, because there's more to it than just quality of service and being able to stick a phone on a network and be able to make a call. There's a lot more to it than that. And I'm not a voice guy, so that's where I'll stop, because that's all about the extent of the voice experience that I do have. Whatever, maybe it's service provider. I'm big into OSP, or I'm big into BGP and MPLS and stuff like that. It depends. I'm also certified in VMware. I'm also certified in CompTIA. So these are all, that's the width of my experience. So your depth is going to be how strong you are in a particular track. So for instance, I'm routing and switching is my track. Your width will be how many different areas of Cisco are you good in? Well, I'm good in routing and switching. I'm good in security. I'm okay at voice. I'm pretty good with wireless. I'm okay in data center. I'm pretty good with service provider. These are all things that come into play. Now, that's just Cisco. What about Microsoft? Okay, well, I can run Active Directory. I can do this, and that with Exchange. I'm okay in that area. Again, that goes back to width. So what do you do? Well, my best advice for you, and this is actually, I took this information from a video that I watched back when I was going after CCNA security, and the question is key, or the actually it wasn't a question, it was more of it was an idea that Keith Barker from CBT Nuggets put out there, and Keith Barker helped me get my CCNA security certification. Matter of fact, the day I passed, I put out there, gave him a kudos through Facebook. But one of the things that I found was, by going out and getting CCNA security, that opened up a few more doors. So I wasn't strong in security. I definitely don't have my CCNP in it. I'm not the kind of guy you're going to want to go out and try to implement 802.1x or anything like that. But what it does is it gives you some girth or some width and some Okay, what else do you do besides Cisco? Well, I can do VMware, I can do Microsoft. So these are all things that um, you'll I lost a train of thought. So those are good things to have, but not necessarily the key things to have. So my first question would be, what do you want to do, or what do you do now? Okay, well, right now I'm a network engineer, so I maintain a network for a company and all that good stuff that goes along with it. Is that what you want to do? You know, it could be, but at the same point in time, it may not be. Um, it depends on the nature of the network, and is it going where you want it to go? How much control of the network do you have? Are you just a regular? Are you like a junior network engineer where a senior guy comes to you and says, "Hey, I need you to log into this router. I need you to add these 3 routes and put an ACL in that's going to permit this amount of traffic to for each network." You know, you don't have to worry about making sure it's right because somebody else has already done that for you. Well, I'm the guy that brings the work to you. That's what I do in my day-to-day job. So I'll be the one that gets the request that I need to put in a new subnet for something, and I need to make sure it has internet access and DHCP and DNS, and it's secure to where this network can't talk to that network, and things like that. So I'm the one that's going to want to design the implementation. I'm going to be the one that actually does the implementation, or pulls the config, and then I'm the guy on the command line or the GUI, depending on the vendor or what it is you're trying to do on the device. That's what I do. So do I like it? Pays the bills, and right now it's a steady job, and that's the main thing. Maintain employment. I was out of work for a period of time not too long ago, and I must have gone through, before I had my CCNP. Now, mind you, I already had a CCNA, and I hadn't gotten my CCNP yet. I had been through probably 7 or 8 interviews. Some were for jobs that were way above what I could handle. I don't know why they interviewed me. Maybe they just wanted to, maybe just because I had nobody else to interview. So I don't know. I didn't ask questions. Why are you interviewing me? I'm there. They called me. They reached out to me. Okay, sure, I'll apply. But do you like it? That's going to be another thing. If you don't like where you work or you don't like the network you're operating in, well, you do have the choice of leaving. That's up to you. Now, I don't like to say on the leave part, but what could you do to make it better? Will management allow you to do that? It depends on what you want to do and how you want to do it. Um, uh, where do you want to be? So that's another one that I get asked a lot. So what's your end goal? Where do you want to go in life? I'm in my early 30s at this point. It's 2014. I got a long ways to go. I can give a serious employer 30 years if I really wanted to. Will that ever come down to be? I don't know, maybe. But the point of that is what do you want to end up being? Well, I've been in the industry about 3 years, and I've technically got a senior role. Now, does that necessarily mean that I have to have 10 years in the industry to have a senior role? No, not at all. Depends on what the employer wants to give you. So that's more of an employer-given type of position. Are you qualified for this slot? That's another thing. So senior engineer versus architect. Well, let's break that down for a minute. What's the difference? Well, I've been a junior engineer, I've been a mid-level engineer, and I've been a senior engineer. Currently a senior engineer. I've also been titled architect. I don't know why, but I was. Really, the junior engineer, and this is from my experience. So don't blow me up for you had something completely different. This is my experience. The junior engineer, I was just the guy that received the phone call. I would take a look at it, and I would make note of what it is you were having a problem with. I would say, okay, he can't get from here to there. This is what he's done. I looked at it. I'm not seeing any issues. Pass it off to the next guy. Escalate it up to a mid-level engineer. Well, after getting my CCNA, I was actually bumped up to a support engineer, mid-level at that point. So you had the network analyst, which was take the phone call, open the case, escalate it if you couldn't handle it. Level 1 support, essentially. I got my CCNA, then I got bumped to a support engineer. So, okay, let's take a look at it. What do you try to troubleshoot it? Spend about an hour at the most with the client. Can you figure out what's going on? If you can't, escalate it to a senior engineer. You know, can you talk to the person that actually deployed the network? Can you talk to a, maybe their IT staff? Maybe something's going on their end you don't see. And then as you go along, now it depends on the company, but that's typically where the line in the sand is drawn between a support engineer and a full-blown senior engineer. Now, senior engineer is probably going to have, and this is the role I'm in. I do all three in my current job because there's only two of us to do it. I have a mid-level engineer below me, and then it comes to me. Is that okay with me? Yeah, that's fine. I'm okay with that. And the reason why that I'm the senior engineer and he's the mid-level engineer is because of the fact that he only has a CCNA. And he easily gets frustrated because he doesn't understand the technologies well enough to implement them correctly. Now, is that his fault? No, absolutely not. Is that a problem for his instructors? No, it's not. It's going to be him going out and taking the time to learn. Simple as that. The more time you have in the field, the more experience, the more understanding, the faster you're going to be able to pinpoint the problem, the faster you're going to be able to fix it. The less time you're going to have to spend in design. So these things will come into play as you go along. Now, senior engineer is probably going to have, and this is my role, is going to be the designer and is going to be the implementer. So he'll draw the config. He may not actually deploy it, so he might not go actually get on the command line and type in the commands to get it up and running. But I do that. Every role, company A might be different from company B, but that's going to be one of those things where as you're going up, you're in the org chart. That's going to be something you're going to want to take a look at. Okay, if you get a promotion from say junior engineer to mid-level engineer, so you go from an analyst to a support engineer, how does your role change? You're still going to take phone calls like an analyst and open up cases, but the difference between that and a support engineer is you're going to take it a step farther. You're going to troubleshoot the problem. You're going to see if you can remote in a different direction. Can you talk if you're having an issue with say high availability? Can you verify high availability would even work? Stuff like that. That's one example out of many that I've ran into. And then the senior engineer is going to be the guy that if the support engineer can't fix it or can't figure it out, the senior engineer is going to take it. Typically, senior engineer is going to have a CCNP, maybe a CCIE, maybe that person is going to be a Juniper guy or a Brocade guy or an HP guy at the advanced level. Your senior engineers are going to have more experience than you, are going to have a deeper level of understanding than you, they're going to have more implementation experience than you. I've done a lot of contract work in my time, and that's given me a lot of exposure to both design and implementation. So I had no choice but to learn. I took these roles on. A lot of times I was in over my head, but as soon as I had my CCNP, and that's actually what got me back to work. I was out for about 2 months. I got my CCNP. I was back to work, and I was busier than I've ever been before. I couldn't believe how much work was getting tossed at me because of the fact that I knew BGP, I know MPLS, I know quality of service, I know routing and switching. Those are all key parts of the network that needed to be operational. And a big piece of that pie, we'll talk about that when we get farther into the services section of the CCIE series that I'm putting together, is going to be the services. DHCP, DNS, FTP, TFTP, all these little things that are come into play as we're going along. So that's going to be more of the senior engineer role. Now, how is that different from an architect? Well, you got the Cisco certified architect, you've got the term network architect, but they want you to have a CCIE, but they don't want you to have a CCDE. I don't see a whole lot of CCDP out there. Ultimately it's up to the employer. Now, if you're working for a VAR, a value-added reseller, or you're working for a partner to Cisco or a partner to Microsoft, the higher certification, the higher the level of certification, or the number of higher level certifications that you obtain and that are valid and up to date, the more money you're going to make them. because one, they're going to be able to take on more work because they're going to have the engineers that are going to be able to support that. That's a big seller. So that's going to be one of the things where you might be a senior engineer, but for a particular client or a particular project, you might be the architect. It's a title, really. I mean, you can label a junior engineer, network analyst as the same thing. It's all about title. Can you handle the position you're in? That's going to be the key thing. So, are you worth the $30 an hour that they're paying you, or are you worth, say, the $85 per hour that the consulting firm or the contracting firm is charging the client to have you on site or designing or whatever? Are you even qualified to design? See, these are all questions that you have to ask yourself, and that's one of the things I'm not sure how many of you actually watched the update video that I did with the very big topology on it, the 30-some routers. That's a topology you should be able to handle if you're at the CCNP CCIE level. You should be able to look at that and go, okay, I understand what's going on there. CCNAs, I wouldn't expect you to understand what's going on. That's why a CCNA doesn't get handed those size of topologies or network diagrams out of the gate. You know, you're going to be getting a couple routers, a couple switches, and that's about the extent of it. Now, you might be working for a very big company at enterprise level, and you might be only have a CCNA, and you might be dealing with massive networks all day. But in the eyes of Cisco, and the minimum requirements that a CCNA has to meet in order to become a CCNA, you're not supposed to be dealing with those networks. That's at least in the eyes of the CCNA. CCNP, CCIE, no problem. That's there every day. And it's not a shot against the CCNA, but it's just real life. And I'm coming from a real world perspective. Now, to answer the architect question, what is an architect? Well, an architect is going to be the designer. Architects are typically going to have advanced levels of understanding with the technical side, so they're going to be able to say, okay, what's your business need? And they're going to deal with the senior leadership, you know, CTO, CIO, senior engineers, you know, whatever the business model is. How are they going to be able to map a network or an IT solution to a business need? These are things that are going to come into play. And the unfortunate part about that is a lot of times, at least in the architects that I've dealt with, they weren't worth it, to be honest with you. The architects that I've dealt with in the past, you're constantly critiquing the config because the config is implemented wrong. And the architects that I've dealt with were book smart. And I had a big problem with the term architect. To me, an architect is going to be a guy that's got 5 to 7 years of hardcore enterprise, massive network implementation experience and support. That's an architect, because you've seen crap break and you know how to fix it. You know, it's funny. In my current position, we had an outage. It was pretty widespread. It actually took down a few sites at one time. It wasn't an ISP thing. It was actually a bug in the operating system that we didn't know about. We implemented a feature and it actually took down a couple sites at one time. So by doing a few different things on the back end through using like Verizon MiFi devices to connect over the internet, I was able to bring these sites back up relatively quickly. One, I have tribal knowledge of the network. So tribal knowledge meaning I've been in the environment for a while. I know how things are operational. It's not so much I know how the technology works, but I know how everything is put together. And that's going to be one of those key things. You might have the technology down pat, but how does the company implement it? You know, are they doing XYZ when you're thinking ABC? You know, it depends on a lot of things in that regard. So depending on the situation will determine what type of title you get. An architect, really, it's a senior engineer and architect, they're just a title. How much work do you actually do? Do you handle 1 or 2 projects and that's all you focus on? Or are you handling 10 or 12 projects and you're handling everything? Or maybe you're only handling a small piece. I've also done contracting roles where I'm a subject matter expert for the routing and switching section. And then you got a guy that does the security. Then you got another guy that does wireless. You got another guy that does the data center. You get another guy that does nothing but service provider stuff, so he's going to do the WAN. So, and you all collaborate together, and you say, okay, well, I'm going to do XYZ on the switch port. I'm going to hand it off to the guy that does wireless and say, okay, here's what I need you to do with the access points. And then the security guy goes, okay, we're going to configure 802.1x so that we can get this, that, or the other. And the data center guy goes, okay, well, I'm going to make sure that the SAN environment is ready for, when a wireless user has to hit it, they automatically get a pipe over to, from one data center to the other. I mean, there's all kinds of things that come into play with that. And I've also been the architect for everything. And I was the only guy to figure it out. And that's a lot more pressure. That's a lot of stress. A lot of late nights, a lot of long weekends trying to figure stuff out. And the thing is, you have to know when to take a break. I've never, and I think I was going somewhere with the outage there. Oh, my boss, sorry, putting that story on hold for a second. I'm going to go back to the other one real quick. My boss came over, and he stood over my shoulder for probably an hour and a half. How's it going? Any updates? And yeah, he was working on a couple other things, and I looked at him, and I go, why don't you leave me alone and let me do my job? Normally, I wouldn't advise you to snidely remark back to your manager, but there are some points in time where you have to be like, if there's no update, there's no progress. How's it going? It's going, not well, but it's going. The day's not, the clock doesn't stop, the time doesn't stop moving. NTP doesn't, just all of a sudden fall out. Well, actually, that's a bad example. It does actually just fall out. But that's one of those things where you have to know when to say, I'll let you know as soon as I have something for you, and move on. Be professional about it, and move about your day. Now, once you have a certification, whether it's Cisco, Microsoft, VMware, whatever, it's your decision to do whatever you're going to do after you have it is ultimately up to you. Your employer may or may not like when you give your 2 weeks notice. Your employer might be like, well, I want to keep you because you're the guy that knows everything. So what's it going to cost us to keep you? What is this other company offering you? Can we do better? And I've gotten a lot of counter offers. I was actually shocked when the last job I did this to, they actually countered offer. They actually offered me $5,000 more per year than what the company I was leaving to go to made me an offer for. And you'd be surprised, I actually went with the other company because it wasn't the money thing, it was the distance I was having to travel to work. I was looking at like 57 miles away to work, and that wasn't cool for me. That just wasn't going to work. So it was easier for me to say, no, that's okay, it's been nice working here, I appreciate everything you guys have done for me, but I'm moving on. And that's your call. You don't have to stay with any company longer than you want to. They might not want that to be the case, but it is what it is. Now, if you go to your employer and you say, hey man, I'd like to know what is something that I can do to move up. I want to take on more responsibility. I have a goal. Will you help me achieve it? And let them decide. And actually, that's actually one of the best things I ever did, because that gave me a little bit of wiggle room in the negotiation section. It's like, okay, I've been doing what you told me to do now, or I've taken on this extra work in addition to my normal roles, and I've been keeping up with my core job role in addition to these other things. So maybe there's room for advancement. Maybe I can get a bump to a support engineer role, and maybe a bump in pay. And the funny thing about it is, the couple times that I've done this, and it's paid off in dividends for me. Not everybody's had equal success that I've had, but every time I've done that, I've gone up in the organization. The pay has gone up, the level of difficulty for the position's gone up, but the workload for the lower level position that I was in, that went away. So I was no longer just answering the phone saying, hey, this is so-and-so, can I help you? And I went to more, hey Rob, I've got customer A on the phone. They're having a problem with DHCP. Like, okay, what have you done? And I just opened the case. I said, okay, have you troubleshot anything? No, not yet. I'm not sure what the problem is. They're not telling me a whole lot. Like, okay, do you want to conference me in, or do you want to just pass it off? I'll conference you in. You know, being willing to help somebody below you is definitely a good sign, because that shows that you're, willing to work with that person. You're willing to maybe help them out, and stuff like that. And that's one of the big things I like to do. I like to pass on what I know. That's why I do these videos. And uh, so they conference you in. You're just like, well, hey, I've got Rob. He's one of the support engineers. He's going to help out. Keeping the analyst or the junior engineer on the line, maybe having him mute his phone or whatever, you take over, or maybe he recaps what has already been discussed and brings you kind of up to speed, and you can start asking questions to the customer. Say, okay, what's going on? What changes have you made? What are you trying to do? That type of stuff. There's going to be one thing I found about IT is there's a lot of detective work. You're going to be asking a lot of questions, especially when you're a third party, and I'm third party right now. I ask a lot of questions, and I'm sitting there as I'm doing this. I'm actually building a portfolio of what they've got going on behind the scenes. So the next time they call me, I don't have to spend 25 minutes trying to learn their environment. I load up a Visio. I started putting things together. Whatever the case might be, to try to understand their network. So the next time they call me up, it's not 20 minutes of figure it out. It's 5 minutes. Okay. Last time I checked, you guys are still doing this, right? And that shows them that you're learning the network. You're going to be the one that they're going to call for next time, because you don't have to sit there with them on the phone for 45 minutes. You're going to be able to spend the 15 minutes on the phone, and you're going to be that much quicker to solve their problem. They're going to want you. They're going to want Rob on the phone. They're not going to want TJ. And if you're TJ and you're listening to this video, I mean no disrespect, and it's sheer coincidence if your name is TJ, but TJ is just an analyst. He doesn't have the technical skills, and you never ever affinity ever bash on your coworker to a client ever. It's just completely unprofessional. If they badmouth your coworker, if the client says something negative to your coworker, and you'd be like, well, TJ couldn't figure it out. Well, TJ's got a lot going on. Maybe it's he had something else going on, and it was easier for him to pass it up to me, or I was free at the moment. It'd be quicker for me to troubleshoot it than it would have been him. You never throw anybody under the bus. That's just one of the things. That's just bad. It's just bad. It's just bad. I was gonna try to come up with a word for it, but it's just bad. You just don't do that. It's completely unprofessional. Because you never know that you're. I've actually had an employer set me up like that. They called the client. They said, "Hey, I want you to call up with this problem. See if Rob can troubleshoot it, and I want you to bag on. I want you to bag on somebody to him." And you're. So I took the call, and it came right to me. And because after a certain point with that company, I gave my direct line number out, and people would call me directly. And because they already had a case, there was, especially with open cases. It's like, okay, well, you're trying to implement this, or whatever. I was helping them engineer something, and then you would go on with that. And it's one of those things where you're working on it. You want to deal with the person that's helping you implement it. You don't want to sit there and play transfer tag through the network. But the guy called up. He had a problem. My boss actually told him to delete some config in an area that wasn't ready to be deployed yet, and within about 5 minutes I zeroed in on the problem, and I said, why are you trying to deploy this? I said, you don't even have anything sitting there, and it wasn't making sense. Every time they ever called me, they had a legitimate issue, and I was actually able to say, oh, you're having a problem with this, and they're like, yeah, that, and I'm like, okay. And this time it wasn't like that, so I thought something was a little fishy. I'm like, well, it doesn't make any sense. So I started digging into it, and then they actually they were like, okay, well, you know what, no big deal. You figured it out for us. We know what to do now on our end, and able to go. And at the same time that I'm trying to figure this out, they're like, hey, I heard that I tried to get a hold of TJ, and he told me that it'd be better off to talk to you because he's not up to speed enough on this, or the bag on somebody else in the department. It's like, well, every time I talk to that guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I talk to you, you figure it out. We need more guys like you. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry you feel that way about them. Um, but they do what they do what they can. I mean, a lot of times they're limited to what they can troubleshoot. It's easier for them to pass the buck to me and then maybe stay on the line, listen in, help out where they can, stuff like that. Not sit there and waste your time, waste my time, that type of stuff. And you try to be professional about it. So, but I passed that test with flying colors because of the fact that I know what I'm doing. Simple as that. I never bag at anybody. It's just bad juju. It's just bad. It's bad all the way around the block. So that's one way you can move yourself up the work chart, is being just willing to do more. Yeah, it is more for less or more for the same. But at the same point in time, it's one of those things where sometimes that's what you need to do to get yourself to the next level. Now, I've also done a lot of interviews with a lot of potential future employers, and I've turned pretty good jobs down because of the fact that it didn't quite line up to what I wanted to do. One of my main things right now is when I go to interview with somebody, and I do probably one interview every quarter. If it's a good position, a good company in the area that I live in, I'll give them an hour of my time just to see what's going on, because I'm always looking for that next big role. My main thing right now is, for one, CCIE is expensive. You got to travel and lodging to the test time. You've got the actual exam costs. If you fail, you got to retake it. You got all these expenses that are coming into play, and I'm looking at, on average, and I'm U.S. based, so I'm looking at probably $3,000 per CCIE lab attempt. That's the cost of me flying to California, taking the test, and flying back. So that's a lot of money per attempt. So if I had to take the exam 2 or 3 times, that's between $3,000 and $9,000. It's a lot of money. So is that something I want to put out myself? Well, that's one of the stipulations now when I go to interview with somebody is, since I passed my CCIE written exam, are you willing to pay for tests? Do you reimburse for tests? Are you willing to pay for the material for the test? Do you need a CCIE? That's one of the big questions I ask them all the time. Do you need a CCIE? And quite frankly, in the company I work for now, they don't need a CCIE. So, am I out there looking? A little bit. It just depends on the situation. But it's one of those things where I know in, say, a year from now, I'll have my CCIE. At least that's the game plan. And that should be all that we need to worry about. But looking at a future employer, that's one of my stipulations when I go in there, is, are they willing to work for this, willing to help you get your CCIE? If they are, you're worth my time. Are you willing to pay a competitive salary after I get my CCIE? Well, sometimes they can't say. But it depends. So, and if you get a bad vibe in the interview, let's say, for instance, I've been in a couple bad interviews where about 10 minutes in, or about 20 minutes in, I can tell that I'm not going to get the job. Sometimes you get a feeling. Sometimes sometimes you don't. It just depends on the situation. But like, okay, if you were to, let's say, I don't know if you're going to hire me or not. Be frank with them. And I've done this with probably the last 7 or 8 interviews that I've done. If you were going to hire me, based on the credentials that I have now and the experience that I have now, what would you want me to have that I don't have that would make me more desirable? And that's gonna, if they are sincere and they're honest and straightforward and they're not just trying to BS you, they'll tell you what they're looking for. Well, we need a guy that's got this experience, that experience, this cert, that cert. Maybe they're a VAR. They need that cert, this cert. They're going to tell you where they want you to be. And that's going to be information for you to take to the bank and say, okay. And depending on the company, if it's a major company and they run their own network and they don't have anybody exterior to the network doing anything, that's going to be one of those things where is it going to be worth their time to have you on board? Stuff like that. There's also going to be, if they're a VAR, that's going to be certifications or training or something like that that's going to be specific to them. Now, if you work for another company that they don't do anything external, so they have their own engineers on site, ask them that same question. They might give you a different response. So, like right now, like I said, the company I work for right now, they don't need a CCIE. So yeah, come time for me to get once I pass my CCIE and I have my numbers, then it may be time to move on. But am I going to stay where I'm at until then? Who knows? You never know. I never say I'm stuck with one company for the rest of my life, because then you're restricting yourself. Because the one thing you want to do is when you leave, you're always looking for a pay bump, and you're potentially looking for more responsibility and a higher, more degree of challenge. So, and that's going to be the one thing. What's your reason for leaving? Why do you want to come work for XYZ company? Whether they're a VAR, whether they're a third-party consulting, whether they are direct hire employment, or whatever the case might be. What's your reason for leaving? Are you not challenged enough? Are you bored? Is there a conflict of interest maybe somewhere? Are you not happy with management? Do you not get along with somebody you work with? There's going to be multiple factors that look into that. So it depends on your situation. And I can't tell you one way or the other. I can give you a lot of, what ifs and examples from my experience, but everything goes back to what do you do after you earn your cert? And I've reiterated that several times that it depends. So you might want to go get your cert. Now I'm in college. I'm taking 2 courses right now, or 2 classes right now for my course. So for my network administration associate's degree, I'm almost done with it. I'm getting really excited. I'm almost near that. I'm the only guy in my school that we have a CCNA program where I go to school, and I'm the only one that passed CCNA before I got done with my CCNA class. I got my CCNA security certification the week after I started my CCNA security class, which was an absolute joke. They were having us work in Packet Tracer, which was a joke. Now, you can't do anything in the exam. For the CCNA security exam, you cannot use Packet Tracer to pass your test. It's not going to work. So I've always been aggressive. I don't just sit around and wait. And it's funny when I talk to recruiters and they're looking at my time in the field and they compare that to my experience level, what I know, and my certifications. And I actually had a guy tell me, "There's no way you've been doing this for 3 years. There's no way." And this guy had been recruiting for 10 years. He's like, "You have the level of understanding. You talk the talk of a 10-year guy." And I go, 3 years. That's all I've been doing it for. You have a CCNP, you have a CCIE written exam you knocked out, you have VMware, CompTIA. And I'm like, yeah, I'm aggressive. Is certification the only thing that I have going for me? No. I have experience in the field too. But if you were to compare my experience in the field to my certifications, they don't balance. I am extremely heavily certified for the amount of time I've been in the field. And that benefits me in some cases. It also hurts me. Because I've interviewed for jobs where it's a network engineer level 1, and I'm thinking, okay, what does that mean? Network engineer level 1. Well, you're going to be doing, answering tickets and things like that, and that's about the extent of what you're going to do. Oh, okay. So no deployments, no design. No, not really. Well, that's kind of lame, but okay. What would be getting me? Well, for a CCNP, that's more of a level 3, level 4, but we don't have a position open for that right now. It's okay, so you need more of a CCNA. Yeah. You have a CCNA, that's why you're here. It's okay. So that's a bad interview for me because I'm overqualified. I won't be happy. I'll get bored. I'll be, lollygagging, whatever. I can take care of my work, but I'm going to have a lot of downtime. And quite frankly, downtime, one of my questions to my employer was, if I'm not doing anything, let's say my projects are up to date, I'm waiting on responses, I don't have anything else going on, am I allowed to study, allowed to move forward? And my current employer, they gave me the thumbs up. Hey, if you want to jump on a video or start taking notes, or they allow me to remote into my house, and I've got an IBM server here at home with ESXi, and I run 10 CSR 1000Vs in GNS3. The CSRs are running as VMs in ESX, in addition to, I have a Windows 7 machine that runs GNS3, and I'll lab something up, because when you're studying for CCIE, I spend the majority of my time doing that. I mean, like literally, I had no social life. If I wasn't married and didn't have kids, you would never see me. Like literally, other than family functions, I rarely go out of the house. I don't go grocery shopping. I hang out with the kids on the weekends. So your certification is going to take the majority of your time, and the higher the level of certification, the more time you're going to have to invest into it, which can be good or bad. And in my case, I like to study. I'm a nerd. I'm the biggest nerd you'll ever meet, but I like what I do. So when people ask me, what's your hobby? Oh, well, it's going to sound kind of crazy, but it's studying. I'm the only guy that's 32, that's married with 2 kids, that my spare time isn't video games or, cars or, anything like that. It's study. I'd rather be reading a book, watching a video, or labbing something up, trying to learn something, trying to obtain my CCIE. I'd rather be doing that. And I've been like that now for probably the last 2 years. Ever since I got my CCNA, actually I should say, ever since I got my CCENT, the Cisco's entry-level networking certification, ever since I got that, I've been on this kick of every night for a couple hours. And the more certs that I've gotten and the longer I've been in the field, the little bit more time that I spent on it. I average 4 to 6 nights a week. I'm probably more like 5 to 6 nights a week, because I have class 2 nights a week, and typically on a Saturday I'll knock out my homework from school, because it's relatively easy. It's read a couple chapters, answer a couple questions in a quiz. I'm done. I'm actually doing a programming class now, because I'm getting more into of automating configurations, because right now my network has got 1,400 pieces of network equipment, and a lot of times I don't have time to sit there and upgrade the operating system to 30 devices in one night. I don't want to spend 7 hours upgrading 30 devices. So instead of doing that, I will kick off the upgrade at like 11 o'clock at night, and I'll stay up till like 12:30 to make sure the first few get ready to go, and then from there I'll, it just depends on what you got going on. I stay pretty busy. So do I go out to the movies? Am I out at the beach? Whatever. I tend to not do that type of stuff. I'll hang out with the family on the weekends. I'll give them Saturday during the day. But the bulk of my time, I'm studying. And not everybody's going to be like that. I know a lot of guys that they could care, that they'll put the minimum in. And now, one of the caveats that I want to point out to you before I let you guys go and I finish this broadcast up is, once you have your cert, what does that mean for you? So now you're certified. So let's say you have a CCNP like I do, and you've been doing this for 3 years. So your time in the field plus your certifications, they kind of match a little bit. So what do you? How is that going to change things? Well, for one, I've been in a couple technical interviews, and you can tell when someone knows what they're talking about. And like I said, I've been in the field for a while now. I can tell when you're BSing me, or you're not sure you don't know how to answer the question, so you give some roundabout answer, or you're not sure. I get kind of cocky, or I get overconfident sometimes in my interviews. And my last interview that I did, which was just a few weeks ago, the person that was supposed to be giving me the technical, he was like, "Can I ask you some technical questions?" I said, "Sure." And I said, "Go ahead and try to stump me." And he said, "Okay." He looks over at the other person in the room, and he goes, "Check accepted." And so he went on. Out of 14 questions, I was able to answer 13 of them. The 14th question happened to be on the ASA, and I didn't know the ASAs came with dual processors. So I said, "You know what? You're outside of my wheelhouse. Don't know. I can't answer that question. I don't know the answer to that one." And he goes, "Fair enough. Be straight up with them. They'll be much. I would rather you tell me you don't know than lie or make something up. Because if you make something up and I know better, I'm going to call you out on it. But like, no. Or I'll be nice about it, like, kinda, but definitely know your stuff. If you're going to be applying for a role, make sure you know what. Make sure you can do 70% of what's on the requirements. Because like for instance, network engineer, network engineer, that role right there, that could mean a whole bunch of stuff to a bunch of different people. That could be, that could be route switch for some companies. That could be VMware for others. That could be VMware. That could be Microsoft for others. It could be Linux for others. That could be a wide girth type of title for a position. So make sure you know what it is you're getting yourself into. I've been a network engineer before where I was supposed to be a Microsoft guy, and I'm like, dude, I've got a CCNP. I don't do Microsoft. And they wanted me to migrate Exchange to Office 365. They wanted me to do this. They wanted me to do that. Like, whoa, you got the wrong guy here. 2 months in, I fixed their voice, their wireless, and their security. I was gone. Did I feel bad about it? No. I wasn't strong enough on the Microsoft side for them. And they knew it. I said, you know what? It's been nice. I walked out. I was direct hire. I said, I'm not the right guy for you. And they were like, well, they wanted me to stay and try, but I was just like, no, I was too focused. I have what I call personal, professional expectations. So my personal professional is getting my CCIE. Once I have my CCIE, I will be happy. The next one is going to be my VCP in VMware. And then from there, I will go wherever it is the company wants me to go. So if they want me to go data center, I'm going to start learning Nexus and UCS. If it's Microsoft, I'll go get Microsoft certified. I have no problem doing that. And that's one of the things too, is don't be afraid to branch out. So if they want me to get Microsoft certified, it's willing to pay for you to go get certified, pay you after you get certified, and either or some effect of that. If they're willing to pay your way to get you certified, then you owe it to them to get that certification. Even if it's not something you want to get done, that's going to be something that's going to benefit you in your job. Hell, why not? Like, for instance, I do a lot of AWS in my current position. Do I know a lot about AWS? No. All I've done so far is from my company. I took my company and draw that out. I created a VPN to AWS. That's the extent of AWS that I have. I created a site-to-site VPN between them, and right now we have like 25 VPCs. We have, all kinds of stuff going on. We got like 1,000 servers sitting up in AWS. We're using the EC2 instances. We got a whole bunch of stuff going on. So it depends on where you want to go. How far do you want to take something? Like I said, the main thing, and I'll say this a lot, it depends. And unfortunately, that's the best answer you're going to get out of me because of the fact of it is what it is. So that's what I've got for you. Oh, and to answer your question, what do you do after you earn your cert? What do you want to do? Talk to your employer. Talk to a future employer. Go do some Googling. What is the salary expectation for a CCNP? What's the salary expectation for a VCP? What's the salary expectation for an MCSE? That'll give you an idea of what you can shoot for. And there, to be honest with you, when I did a Google search last night for CCIE, I'm not quite at the six-figure mark, but I'm getting close to it. But, I was like, well, what's the salary range for a CCIE? Well, if I go to California, I can make $200,000. If I go to Florida, I can make $160,000. So it all depends on what you want to do. You are in control of your career. That's one of the main things that you have to remember. You control what you do. So if you don't want to do something, you don't have to. That's the beautiful thing about being in a free country. You can go wherever you want to. Just be mindful that you might not have the expectations that you wanted. So that's pretty much it. As a quick update for my the CCIE version 5 RNS series, I'm currently I'm about halfway through BGP, and it's rocking. I'm loving this, loving it. I've got about 10 videos recorded right now. I'm making headway through there. BGP is the largest section of the CCIE. blueprint. And once I get done with BGP, the next step is going to be MPLS. And then that'll be another big section. And then after that, it's pretty much going to be downhill. That's going to be the bulk of our material. So we'll take a look at once we get through BGP and MPLS, then it's gonna. I'm not sure where I'm gonna go yet with that, but we're knocking it out and going from there. If anybody has any requests for anything going that you want me to cover, stuff like that, don't hesitate to shoot me an email. My email. Whoa, I must have bumped my. I bumped my mouse. My email address is rriter82 at Yahoo. Definitely drop me a line. I'm more than happy to take requests. For any of you that are looking for documentation, for like you hear me talk about my OneNote file, there's a, what do you call it? On CCIE written and CCIE version 5, there's a link in there. Don't click on the link, copy it, and paste that into your window. You can go to the very end, click on the actual playlist, and highlight it. Go to that link. It goes to my Dropbox. There's a bunch of stuff already in there. The OneNote file. If you're looking for the written information for the stuff in for the network principles section, it's under the CCIE written section. So it's going to be in there. You can't miss it. For other stuff, there's a bunch of stuff up there. The slides I'll be putting up there momentarily. I'm going to be putting some stuff up there like RIP, EIGRP, OSPF. There's going to be some stuff going up here soon. But I wanted to get MPLS out of the way before I started doing anything else, uploading that, because I wanted to keep all of the OSPF stuff that's applicable to OSPF. So, for OSPF and then for MPLS, OSPF is a PE to CE routing protocol, stuff like that. But that's it. So pretty much where it sits. Drop me a line if you'd like. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're interested in seeing more. You will get an update every time I put out videos. They won't be coming out quite as frequently as they were because I'm back in school now. I'm going to slow down a little bit. My output rate. I don't have as much time as I used to, so I had to be a little more selective about when I'm recording. And the videos are going to be they're going to keep coming, but eventually we will be done with the ATC. Once I'm done with the technology videos, we will do a full-scale lab walkthrough, and that's actually what I'm actually writing a lab right now for that, and it's going to be extremely in depth. I'm trying to make all of the tasks very vague. And I will have a couple of live sessions like this where I'll include people that want to be involved in that. I'll put out an opportunity for you to join in, and I'll ask the question. You'll give me your response. We'll get involved. We'll see if you're right, whether I'm right. All different solutions, that type of stuff. And it's not going to be just an 8-hour block of time where I race through a lab. It's going to be in depth. We're going to take a look at layer 3 routing versus layer 2 switching versus MPLS versus BGP. We're going to run through all the different solutions that are out there. Go through some configurations you may not have seen before, stuff like that. But just keep an open mind to what's going on, and we'll go from there. So that's pretty much it. I'm signing off for now. I'm actually going to go record a BGP video after this and continue with studying. I got a couple hours left of my night before I hit the hay and go start up tomorrow. Like I said, if you have any questions, drop me a line. Subscribe if you'd like. Throw a comment in there, here or there. Please don't be negative. If you have constructive criticism, I'm all about that. Just don't tell me I suck. But I do try my best. I put a lot of effort into what I do, and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's what's up. So, if you like this, I appreciate it. If not, thanks for viewing. So, I hope this has been informative for you. I want to thank you for viewing.